Good afternoon, and I want to thank you for joining us again in our virtual town hall. It is a blustery Friday afternoon. It's been a little bit of rain in the air today, but more importantly, it's been a good week overall. We'll talk about some of the things that have not gone our way throughout the course of this virtual town hall. But I'm pleased that we've gotten so many questions from the public that I'm going to keep this part short. And maybe that was the intention for you, was to force me not to go on a long monologue. We're proud to have with us State Representative Kirk Hatcher, who's going to be joining us in just a few minutes to talk about things that are happening in the legislature, but especially things that represent his district, the impact the district that he represents, which is most of West Montgomery and parts of South Montgomery as well. And we want to talk about the education investment referendum that we have, and he's going to help us kind of walk through that. But first, I want to let you know that as the weekend comes up, we want to first say Happy Teachers Appreciation Week, Happy Nurses Week, and most importantly, Happy Mother's Day to all the great mothers, especially my mom, Molly, and my aunts and everyone, certainly my wife. We want to thank everyone, all the mothers out there, for the great work that they do all the time. Just really hope that you have a great weekend, not just a great Mother's Day on Sunday, because we know Mother's Day is always 10 times better than Father's Day. No comparison. So we want to thank you for doing everything that you do, in particular during times like this, as mothers in the community. That said, there are a number of things going on this weekend, and if you have any questions about what's open here in Montgomery, please feel free to go to mgmready.com. That's going to give you a list of everything from our museum to our Parks and Recreation Department to our riverfront, and places where you can get outside and socially distance amongst yourselves and your friends and your family. So it's very important that you know that you can go to the park. We know people are restless and want to get out a little bit. You can take part in that. We just ask you properly social distance yourselves and your group from maybe others. And also, we highly encourage you to wear masks anytime you're outside or anytime you're in the public. Now, we do have one quick announcement I want to highlight, and that is today we announced again that we have formed a partnership with Hyundai Motor Manufacturing Alabama, as well as Health Services Incorporated, to bring free testing, free COVID-19 testing to underserved communities, not only here in Montgomery, but also throughout the Black Belt region. And those tests are going to be available starting next week. And you can start by calling a number, and we'll make sure we get that to you before the end of this town hall to see if you have any symptoms. But even if you don't have symptoms, as we found out, you can be asymptomatic. We wanted to let you know that you can still call for an appointment and get tested, just in case you think you may have come into contact with someone who may be impacted by the COVID-19 virus. And so we're very proud of that partnership. We announced it a couple of weeks ago, but now we're ready to go live. And you'll hear and hopefully see a lot more of that over the next few days and weeks as we try to spread the word throughout Montgomery, the Black Belt community, and into West Alabama, and rural areas, in particular those Black communities that have not had access to testing but are disproportionately impacted by that. So we certainly want to let you know that we're excited about it, and next Tuesday you can start, and we'll make sure that you get that number before we're done here today. That being said, there are some things that did not go our way today. Even amid the safer at home policy that Governor Ivey has had, we continue to see rising numbers. We've had 197 cases already in May. That's not for April or March. That's already in May. We're just on the 8th day. We're seeing an increasing number, not only in our jails, but also in our nursing homes. And so those areas are important that we try to focus on, and we're trying to work with our health experts on that, but we're also seeing them in the general population as well. Our statewide total surpassed 9,000 cases today. That is very significant and is not the trend line that we want to see. And as of noon, Montgomery County has 515 cases and 13 deaths. So these are numbers that are not indicative of us flattening the curve just yet. We have more work to do. We have to remain vigilant, and we have to make sure that we're still washing our hands, we're still washing our phones, and we're still doing all the things that we were doing at the beginning of this, and we're keeping those safe practices in mind. Right now, the models show a large range of projections and deaths, and many of those we think are a result of premature openings and relaxing of these social distancing guidelines. So there's pressure that is mounted on not just federal officials, but state and local officials to reopen. But from my standpoint, the data is not quite there for us to really embrace that in full. I'm more than aware that by now, the governor has chosen to relax some of the rules in certain venues. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with that. We're just going to have to trust the experts, I think, to give us more guidance. But at this point, we're going to have to rely on those business owners to do what's necessary for not only their customers, but also their employees as well. And I certainly want to thank all of our frontline workers and all of our first responders, from grocery stores to public safety to our medical personnel, for doing everything that they've done over these last few weeks. And we want to continue to thank them as we go forward. So with that, last thing I'll say is that, our daily new cases have more than doubled where we were just a few days ago. And so I don't want anyone to think that just because you may see some things on the national news that we're out of this yet. We are not out of the woods yet. We're not in the clear, so to speak, on this issue. It is important that you protect yourself, your family, and your friends, and do everything that the CDC and the National Institute of Health and many others have encouraged us to do, so that we can continue to work around this and through this, because I do believe this is a marathon and not a sprint. And we're going to have to continue, even with new orders in place, to do what we can to look out for the health of our community. And that may mean some things that are unpopular. That may mean keeping in force some things that people disagree with. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be guided by the science. I'm going to be guided by the data with that. And so as the governor has amended her safer at home order, that's an issue that we want to make sure we focus on a local level here, and we continue to spread throughout our immediate circles. With that said, I want to invite Representative Kirk Hatcher to come give us his thoughts on where we are regarding the referendum to invest in our public education, and just give us his thoughts on this overall legislative process. And I will press pause on my comments about the COVID-19 pandemic, and I will ask Representative Hatcher if he will to just give us his thoughts on this and kind of where we stand, just kind of a broad overview, and then we'll open up for some questions.
Well, I'm very happy to join you, Mr. Mayor, and the citizens of Montgomery in this moment. And of course, we're still running around answering calls from what's happening in the Senate, even at this time. But like you, I want to also acknowledge this weekend, Mother's Day weekend, and wish all of our mothers out there a happy Mother's Day. And as you've said, this is not, while we celebrate the day, the truth of the matter is Mother's Day is every day. And so I want to say happy Mother's Day to my mother, Dorothy, and your mother, Mama Reed, Ms. Molly Reed, and so many other mothers out there who have, my God, where would we be without them? Where would we be without them? And also the teachers, for which I have served in that capacity for a number of years. I don't think you ever, when you're an educator, you're always an educator. And obviously the nurses and healthcare professionals out there. Thank you to all of you. It was a privilege on yesterday to witness some form of victory in this first leg of the battle for our precious children by passing out of the House what I think, and I'm told by former legislators, was pretty much landmark legislation. It's legislation that seeks to correct a serious problem, and that's the problem of underfunding. We presently fund our public schools in Montgomery County at the state mandated bare minimum of 10 mills. And this bill simply asks for a raise in the ad valorem tax of 12 mills. We're trying to, respond to what the fairly new Montgomery Public School Board asked of us in terms of helping to correct some issues and meet the objective of having a public education system second to none, and to at least being able to serve this community in a way that the community, as community leaders, have said they believe and know would best position us for the future. And surely our children deserve better than what they have been receiving. And so yesterday was a major victory for precious children of this city and the river region, because it will have those effects on us going forward. As is the case with anything, one of the things I learned early on, particularly even more so in college, was that if you expect to have any success, that one has to go through one share of adversity before you arrive at your destiny. And we're not there yet, but it's important that we celebrate even the smallest of victories to get us to where we need to be, because the end goal is to have a referendum on the November ballot for the people to decide, people of Montgomery County to decide on whether or not this is the time for us to move forward with properly educating our young people in this public school system. It is the people's decision. We had one responsibility in the state legislature as it relates to this, and that was simply to, quote unquote, authorize placing this particular referendum on the ballot. That's it. It was not our job, and it is not our job in that legislative body to raise the tax. It was our responsibility to place the referendum on the ballot for the people listening to us now. The voters of Montgomery County will be the ones making that decision. So with that being said, I can tell you that what I've always believed is that a central tenet of the American dream is that all children should have a chance to improve their lot in life. Period. This should not be as political as it has become. The process, of course, is one that is political to get it there. And what I have said earlier that bears repeating, that we, in terms of the local legislative body, we received the mandate from the Board of Education, Montgomery Board of Education. We received it from the Montgomery County Commission. We received it from the Montgomery City Council, you as the mayor and leader of our city. We received it from the Chamber of Commerce and all of the business leaders. We received it from the leaders at Maxwell Air Force Base and all other interested parties. We received the mandate to at least do something substantively about our educational system. And so yesterday was a desire for us to move that forward. And so I'm grateful for the members of our delegation, legislative delegation, for their support. It was a heavy lift for some of our members to try to do the right thing. It was hard for some of them, and it was not an easy lift. They took had a lot of feedback and pushback on this. But I'm just grateful that they felt that it was important to put our children first and the future first. And so I want to, again, say, hey, this measure allows the people to vote on this if we can get it to a ballot. It just simply allows our people to make that decision. And my hope is that our people will step up to that moment and this challenge, and actually do the right thing for our kids.
Hey, we thank you so much for the leadership. We thank you for really ushering this through. We know it was not easy. Anytime it seems we talk about investing in public education, in particular, in communities of color, there seems to be all of these pre-clearances, all these qualifications that you have to have. And I don't understand that, if we invest in them on the front side, we don't have to worry about punishing them on the back side. And so I hope that, again, for all the people who believe in an equal society, they also believe in an equitable process that brings that about. And so I thank you for your leadership in that and steps you've taken. I want to make sure that I highlight just a couple of quick things before we get to the questions, and that is, again, just want to update the public on the statewide order that Governor Ivey just came out with earlier today. The new order does go into effect on Sunday, May the 11th, and it does remove the 10-person limit on non-work gatherings, subject to maintaining the 6 feet of distance between persons. So that does include churches. I think it's very important that that be recognized. It's not just for your barbershops and your nail salons and your restaurants, but it does include churches. And I just want to say that, let's be very conservative in our approach to that. I want to specifically mention that in relation to the Black church, which is so many things beyond just a place of worship for many in the community. But we know disproportionately that this virus and disease is impacting the Black community, so much so that 45% of deaths in the state of Alabama are made up of Black people from this disease, versus we only represent 27 or 28% of the population. We also see even higher numbers in Montgomery from the standpoint of infections, with the African-American population making up 57% of that. So we want to be very cautious about that. Obviously, with the governor's order in place, we're going to abide by that as a city, but just want everybody to make good decisions. And so when you think about those businesses that are now allowed to be open, restaurants, bars, breweries, athletic facilities, gyms, even tattoo places, just keep those things in mind, whether you're at the lake or you're at the beach or you're just out and about. Let's make sure we understand where the data is right now, not where the politics may be right now. Let the data guide you on that. And so I'll stop there and we can go right into the questions, because I know we had a lot of those. So I'll end my part for now right there. Let's take some questions.
Can I piggyback really quickly on what you're saying about that? Because it's so important. Our people, and particularly in the African-American community, I heard just this morning, we have these unique circumstances right now as well, not just in terms of African-Americans, but poor people in general, where I heard, there was a young lady in one of our housing projects who I think may have tested positive or at least exhibited the symptoms, and she's told to go home and quarantine. Now, understand this. This is a young lady with children, small children, in the housing project, quarantine. Now, she doesn't have a basement that she can go to be away from the kids. She doesn't, and someone has to look after the kids. So we have unique circumstances when it comes down to what happens to us with this coronavirus. And in addition to that, the thing that I find striking is that the budget that I saw on yesterday, there's an item for an $800 million broadband line item on the budget, but there's nothing on the budget that even remotely looks significant or is significant around Medicaid expansion. Not a single thing. So as you're saying, it's so important because we're disproportionately represented in these deaths. It's so important for our people to be careful about how we respond to this virus. We need to respect this virus and recognize that we may not see people. If, as you pointed out, the asymptomatic nature of it, the weather may be nice and it looks like you can just get out there and things are just, as like usual, but it's not. And it's important for our people to hear us when we're saying this because we're literally dying of this disease, this virus.
Couldn't agree more. We've got a question on the screen. I'm not sure if you can see it, so I'll read it just in case. Representative Hatcher, can you further expound upon a bill you sponsored, HB 500, and the benefits it may potentially have on Montgomery County public school kids from Ray Rita?
Thank Ray Rita for that question. The bill in substance basically allows us to get the measure to the ballot, if we can, as a referendum. And what that does, of course, which is the process outlined, I think, even in our Constitution, it allows the citizens, whenever there's a tax of any kind, for the most part, relating to ad valorem tax. In particular, this is a measure decided upon by the people, the voters. So what we looked at is to regain the kinds of things that the school board said they would need in order to get the system back up fully functioning in the way in which they would like for it to be and the way we need it to be, heading fully and firmly into this 21st century. They need the resources to do it. And as I said on yesterday, we're not saying, and neither is the school board saying, and the superintendent, that financial resources is the panacea. This is not, the cure-all. It's not the fix-it-all, but it's an incredibly important step in a process, especially when we have a legacy in Montgomery County of a system that has been so severely underfunded. And so the bill itself does not outline the specifics associated with what the Montgomery School Board would do with the resources, but it does allow, what would happen when they get the resources, if we can get the ballot to the referendum to the ballot.
And if I can say, the school board has laid out in very good detail.
That's right.
With financial accountability, what they plan to do, from deferred maintenance to bringing on additional teachers,
yes,
reading coaches, and counselors, and wraparound programs and services. They have laid out in very good detail, and I think Dr. Aaron Moore and Arthur Watts, as well as the school board, are to be commended for the transparency, yes, and for the level of detail they have laid out. That's very easily accessible for those who've questioned what they plan to do with it and what their priorities would be.
That's right. And to add to that, I think in a broad sense, what we do know is, in order for Montgomery to survive and thrive, we've already identified long ago, but certainly even more so now with laser-like focus, we must offer a good public education option to our residents. We have to. And the benefit would be, attracting a stronger labor force, attracting industry, and to do something about what's happening as relates to losing our middle class here in Montgomery and in the River region. So the benefit, is clearly that we have to do something, and everybody agrees. All of these stakeholders agree that we have to do something about public education in Montgomery. And what we're seeking to do is address this, certainly from our standpoint, by at least saying, let's give you the resources to do it. If we're expecting $1 million outcome and we've only been putting in $100, I don't know how to make sense of that, because I don't think it's sensible anyway. But let's do our part.
Absolutely. All right. This question is for both in regards to the CARES Act. With 1.7 billion allocated to Alabama, what percentage will Montgomery be able to access? What are the top 3 areas of need that you feel should get the funds? Let me jump in and say, I don't know what percentage Montgomery will get. The last information we got, and I say we being one of the mayors of the 10 largest metro areas in the state, was that it would be based on population.
Right.
And we would get it out that all cities and municipalities would get it via their population, unless you were a community that was big enough to meet the threshold, which I think only Birmingham or Jefferson County was. So it really comes down to county. If your county was over 500,000, you got the money directly from the federal government to be dispersed by your county government. If your county was not, which everyone in Alabama that's not Jefferson County is not larger than 500,000, then you have to go to the state, and then the state allocates it to the county by population for the county to then allocate it to the cities. That was my last understanding. As I would look at things from my standpoint, we would want to make sure that we, from the top 2 or 3 things would be, 1, public safety and addressing those areas of need. Certainly our economic stability and assisting any way that we could there with our small businesses and entrepreneurs. And 3rd, just overall general services in areas that we've had to cut back on that have suffered due to the pandemic. So those would be my 3 areas, but that was my last understanding. Kirk, if you know something different, feel free to.
That is absolutely my understanding as well. And of course, a part of the debate yesterday, Chairman Klaus spent a lot more time, wrangling that question on the floor than the short time I've been there, because there was a lot of concern, it seemed, among the legislators about how much control the governor would have on the allocation of these resources. In other words, how much control they were wanting to know how much control they would have in the process. And of course, one of the rumors that got out there was that somehow or the other, the speaker and the House had put together a wish list. And the speaker came out with a statement not too long ago, and it reads, he says, contrary to reports, I did not draft or submit a wish list, quote unquote, of items related to Federal CARES Act dollars. My only goal is to ensure those dollars are spent responsibly and for the greater good or the greatest good. Any list that is circulating did not have final approval from House leadership. So as you can see, there's a lot going on around these resources. But I think the purposes that you have outlined for use for our local community is pretty much where every person who is seeking to lead responsibly, seeking to use those resources for that benefit. So we're on board with the same when it comes to that.
Very well. Another question: where did the bill get in the Senate today? Representative
I'm referring to HB 500.
Yes.
Senator David Burkett is the sponsor of that bill in the Senate, and we have been back and forth even before coming on here. There is still ongoing debate. There is an amendment put forth by a member of our delegation, Senator Barfoot, that we are trying to work with, and hopefully we can come to some agreement about the best path forward with it. This is not an easy lift. It never is. I've come to find out when it gets to the Senate, but I do know that everybody's clear who needs to know that not only are we seeking to get this bill passed through both houses and on its way to the ballot in November, but we'd like to get it done in a way that honors the spirit of what it was we sought to put together. And so we're going to be monitoring that process and checking back with our people throughout the day, because we have a limited number of days in the session, and there's the promise that even if the Senate gets the budget, which they're intending to do, I think, to the governor's desk today, that she's probably going to veto that budget, and we'll end up back here on the 18th, poised to have enough votes to defeat that veto. So stay tuned, and I want to encourage our people to remain vigilant, especially regarding this bill, because it's so important for our kids and the community.
Very well. Question: I keep watching the numbers for our city and the state go up since the governor opened up some of the businesses. Will you issue an order for people in Montgomery to wear face coverings? We have already been encouraging this community to do that for really weeks, if not months. It goes back, I think, to the end of March. So we've been encouraging that. We came out a little bit stronger during the month of April on that we know it is very helpful for people to wear masks or some type of face coverings. There are now designer coverings out there with everything from your school of choice, your favorite athletic team, to what your hometown is, to whatever your favorite fashion brand is, to the just basic medical mask. So we certainly encourage everyone to do that. I don't anticipate that we will mandate people to do that at this time, because I do not have confidence that face coverings are accessible to everyone. And then I also understand some of the consideration that must be given to people wearing masks and the fears that they have of being suspected as a robber, someone who's trying to do something. So I don't anticipate mandating it anytime soon at the local level, but we will continue to encourage and strongly encourage people to get those masks where they can. And as you may know, we gave out almost a little bit more than 5,000 masks just last week at various locations around the city. And I was surprised by the turnout. Our staff did a great job in getting the word out and making sure the public came, and we did not have enough. So we will do another mask giveaway. And I mentioned it to the city council on Tuesday that I was going to ask for their help in order to do that, so we could get more masks to give out to the community so that people can become comfortable with them. And second thing, also have access to them. So that's kind of where we stand on that. But we definitely want everyone to wear a mask anytime they're out in public, or anytime they may be around a senior or a young person or someone that may be vulnerable with a pre-existing condition. All right. Would the numbers keep rising? Do you foresee an instance where we may have to shut down again, or has that ship sailed? Thanks, Kathy. No, that ship has not sailed. I do foresee a situation where we may have to shut down again. As the health experts from Johns Hopkins and Harvard have been telling mayors all across the country and the world, we could potentially be loosening the faucet too soon, and this premature opening or reopening of society that may force us to have to tighten things up or shut things down again if there's a second wave. So I think it's very possible, and some experts think it's more probable than not. All right, next question. With city, county, and state workers returning to work and reopening to the public, will testing be available to them? Also, how will kids be kept safe when they return to school?
Good question.
Kirk, if you want to take that one from the state level, and I can address kind of what I'm hearing on the county and city side as well.
One of the things that I think all of our government agencies are attempting to do, and I have to say that I've been pleasantly surprised to a large extent, with our governor's response. It hasn't been the typical response that most of our governors in our region, the southern region, have enacted. She has paid attention, it seems, to the science. And so we've seen how some of that is played out. And while there are some of those details, some of which I think have been mentioned already, that concern us, I think she's taken a measured approach, even regarding just the workers around the state. And so, for example, even at the State House on yesterday, there is a limited amount of staff members who were present because everybody, and of course, the State House building itself, not to mention the other buildings, but the State House building was not designed for its present use. The hallways are very cramped and narrow, certainly not conducive to the kind of public activity that state houses normally would be conducive to doing. So she's aware of a lot of these things as it relates to what's happening around the state and agency. So there's going to continue to be a very careful approach to how we so-called open up the state again. Because again, look, we call these things a pandemic for a reason. That's not a word that we just toss around. And we're only a couple of months at this point into this. And all of the epidemiologists, infectious disease professionals are echoing the very same thing you just mentioned, Mr. Mayor. And we have to, as citizens, recognizing that these are tough times for literally across the board. But we have to be careful about how we go about approaching this virus, because if we're not respecting it, because I have to say, very, quickly here, I'm not comfortable with the level of testing, the tracing, and any of these things. It's nowhere near where it should be. And I am very anxious about what I am hearing in the news, and we've been hearing now about a potential second wave. So when it comes down to any sense of business as usual, then that's a loaded question. And so everyone is going to have to govern themselves accordingly when it comes down to that, including what I think the state superintendent echoed as a possibility of kids being able to return to school in the fall. So we're going to have to be incredibly vigilant, and we're going to have to communicate, as in my view, with one voice, a reasonable voice, as it relates to things like that, and wherever there's an opportunity for public space gatherings in any sense of the word. So because nothing's normal right now, and I don't think there will be, any sense of normalcy in this process for a while.
Very well. I agree. Let me just say this to the questioner. I don't know what the school system plans to do. I have not been made abreast of what their positions are going to be. I've heard a million things. I won't speculate. What I'll commit to doing is asking either the superintendent or someone to come on from the school system to address that, maybe as we get a little closer in the summer, and we'll discuss those things so that the public will know. But from the city and county standpoint, we're not in position to test everyone. But again, we are in position where right now we have free testing that's been made available through our partnership with HSI and through Hyundai. So, all one has to do is call the hotline over at 334-420-8620. That's 334-420-8620 and set up an appointment, or you can go to mgmready.gov and you can get that information as well over at the Montgomery Primary Health Center or the Hayneville Family Health Center in Lowndes County. So to the degree anyone wants to get tested, they can, and this is at no cost to the individual. And so we're opening that up to the general public. I do know that the county is taking your temperature before you can come into any building. And we may do that as well. We have not opened up our buildings just yet. We'll be moving in that fashion soon, but not quite. So we'll make all of those, initiatives public to our employees and to the general public of how we'll proceed. Do we have any other questions, or does that wrap us up? Oh, I thought we were done. All right, let's see. Last question. Mayor, how has the emergence of global corona pandemic impacted your leadership upon assuming office? That's a great question. Wow. It has really changed the game. But let me say this, as I told journalists who called from a very well-known newspaper. I said, if you got a pilot who can only fly the plane when it's clear skies outside, then we're in trouble, and I don't want to get on that plane. So I want somebody that can fly the plane in some turbulence.
That's right.
And so, you can't predict that. No one saw this coming. And as I've talked to mayors of small cities, large metro areas, mayors who've been in office shorter than I have, to mayors that have been in office much longer, they've all, to a man or a woman, told me that there is no playbook for this.
That's right.
And with this, you have to trust your instincts. You have to trust your staff around you, and you have to really, make the decisions that are in the best interest of the people that you represent, and not be under any false illusion that all of them are going to work or that all of them are going to be well received. You do them with the information and data that you have at hand, and that's how I have proceeded in my leadership, understanding that what we may say on Friday may have to change by Saturday morning. Right. And I reserve the right to change my mind based on the information and circumstances that I have at that time. And so I think with us, what we try to do is improve our communication, not only internally, but externally. And we've also tried to build a level of collaboration and cooperation in this community for various efforts and initiatives. And without that, I don't think that we're at a place here in Montgomery or in this region where we are right now. And so I think it just kind of sharpens those leadership principles that you already have. And it certainly opens up things maybe a little bit more to what you may be willing to employ, because it's just such a unique circumstance. And I think that the community has responded in a fantastic way overall. Sure, we've had some issues here or there, but overall, I'll take the people of Montgomery over any other community any day. And I think that our staff and our team here with the city has done a great job. And we've been able to work with the county and the state folks as well. So I think all of those things are in play, but you got to be able to lead during tough times. Anybody can lead when you got all the money in the bank that you need and all the political capital that you can afford. But it takes, certainly, I think some special circumstances, patience, and prayer to deal with the unique environment that we're in right now. And that comes with the territory. Nobody forced me into the position. I'm glad to be in it. I wouldn't change it, even knowing what I know now. And I look forward to continue to lead in a positive manner, to a better place for the folks in this city and this community as well.
Mm-hmm. 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 If I could, you still on?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you for your leadership, because it is, the questioner was right. You go directly into office, and as soon as you're in, here we're hit with a century-old malady. I'll call it pandemic, and you have done exceedingly well. Thank you for your leadership, because I'm convinced that because of some of the decisions you've made, some that have been not nearly as popular to be made, we've stayed out of that top 5 category of cities that have had these high cases with the coronavirus. So it means a great deal what you've done. And if I may, I want to add this final point for your listeners and our people out here in Montgomery. Keep your eyes on this legislation for our schools. The bottom line is you're going to hear a whole lot of things coming up in the next week, and quite frankly, the next day, that says a lot about accountability. Know that this school board in particular, people made a decision in 2018 to change that board drastically. And that board came in, they hired a new superintendent. They've been cleaning up problems. People raising the question about misuse of funds. Well, first of all, prior to those arrivals, there were really no funds to misuse. But for those funds that they found, this administration found it, corrected the problem, put in systems of accountability. They've absolutely committed to a yeoman's task. And what they've done, in addition, and they're probably not talking about it enough, They made a $2 million cut in central office. They've made a lot of moves that have both been requested of them and those that they knew needed to be made. And so anyone who's saying that there's this overwhelming need for some sort of accountability have simply not been paying attention, or they're just searching for reasons to not support our young people. And so anybody who goes into any conversation with me at any time that wants to talk about achievement gaps, I immediately turn to the value gap. That's what it is. This is what, and so if we're going to do what's necessary, we say we care about, all of our children, not some of our kids, but all of our children, then there's no way for us to stand in the way of moving this measure to the ballot box in November. There's no way, because we still need to learn that every life has value. If we're willing to fight in the legislative body to protect life before it's born, then we should be willing to protect it after they're born. So this is a part of this process. And so I want people to keep their eyes on this, because it's going to be very important moving forward. Because Mr. Mayor, I'm new at this. And what I saw in terms of opposition yesterday just blew my mind. The people who were calling, particularly on behalf of Alpha. And I want the people to know that if the ballot measure fails, a part of the reasoning for that will be Alpha Insurance. I want that to be clear. I said it. And so the bottom line is that we cannot allow this kind of thing to continue to happen and not have that question. Because as I said earlier, far too many entities, leaders in this local community, all came around to address the permanent interest, which was the education of our young people. And it seems to me, one entity pretty much made calls all the way up to and even during that vote. That to me is reprehensible. And we won't stand for it. And this legislator certainly won't. So the idea of going forward, please, I'm begging the public to keep an eye on what's happening, because at the end of the day, final comment, at the end of the day, it is my belief that love and concern for humanity should be a function that's not limited by race and class. This is when we talk about values. So stand up for our children. Stand up for the children. And let's move this to the ballot box for each of you to decide on where you want to be with this.
I don't know if there's anything other than to follow up, but to say amen. And with that, I will just try to close out by thanking Representative Hatcher for his passion in leading not only the citizens of his district, but this entire state, and standing up for them as he has long before he was in public office, for his record in education and his record in community activism. I want to thank him for coming on to share an update, which we thought was very important for the people of Montgomery to know and to be aware of where things stand as we do this virtual town hall, and what the impact may be on our public education system, and more importantly, our school children, their parents, and our teachers and support staff, and all those educators that play a role in building for the future. So I want to thank you, Kirk, for the leadership in the legislature, and as well as the entire Montgomery delegation and those members who were supportive of that initiative yesterday, and hopefully will continue to support that going forward. I'll be very brief in just telling everyone, if you want to see the entire virtual town hall, please go to mgmready.com. Please feel free to check us out on YouTube as well. Share this video with anyone who may not have been able to catch us live. Hopefully it's been informative to you. Hopefully this is a value. It's not just something that we aim to do to pass time, because we don't have time to waste. So if there's anything we can do to improve it, then please let us know that as well. That being said, with the unpopular decisions, the curfew is still in effect for the city of Montgomery and Montgomery County. We certainly want you to know that we're still under a state of emergency. Our numbers are not shrinking right now. We are not seeing new cases of the COVID-19 virus shrink enough for us to lift that at this moment. We look forward to lifting it as soon as we can. And so we encourage you to wear a mask anytime you're in public. We encourage you to please continue practicing social distance guidelines. And please, even under the governor's new orders, please be careful, please be safe. And we look forward to seeing you again next weekend. Thank you so much for all you do. We continue to pray for you, and we hope that you'll continue to pray for us, and let's live our creeds as well. Thanks so much. Have a great day and a great weekend, and happy Mother's Day again to all the fantastic mothers out there.